after that conversation happened, I said, I'll let her wait 5 minutes.
Yeah, no. Jan and I had a great conversation. It was fun.
I do like
Okay, so it's 11 o'clock. We are going to be beginning our panel.
Wait! Shut the doors!
We're just going to leave that door open just a hair for
Just a smidge for slipping.
There's green things.
That's lovely.
from the lingerers who are not familiar with the change of room. Anyway, so welcome all to Steampunk in the Media, and we are the Wandering Legion of the Thomas Steele, and we're proud to bring you Steampunk in the Media.
Yeah.
So, I'm the general.
Okay, okay, Sam. Let's introduce ourselves.
I'm the general.
Your turn.
Hi, the general.
Hello.
I am the Baron von Leahy.
I'm the professor, Professor Marvel.
And I'm the Lucretia Dearborn.
And we are the Wandering Legion of the Thomas II.
Say it all together
Is
now.
proud to bring you. When did our name get longer?
No, this leads into that. It's proud to bring you.
Oh, so this isn't our name anymore?
That part isn't our name.
Just
But
not
just all
prepared.
So,
Just making sure.
anyway,
I don't want to change my business card if I don't have to.
before we begin, right, by the way, I'm just going to just slay this here. I totally forgot to tell you last time.
Thanks.
I really meant to. This is just off the cuff so that you will understand, I hope, our conception of steampunk, okay? Which is how we'll get into a lot of why something is and why something may not be, or why you should think of it as, okay? So, first off here, I assume everyone knows what steampunk is. Someone tell me not.
Does anyone not?
Okay,
It's
someone
okay,
tell
it's
me.
okay if you don't.
Tell me.
Is that anything like cyberpunk?
Ian Scott. Okay, well, what is steampunk?
It's Victorian era science fiction.
Anyone else?
Acceptable?
Everything generally runs on steam and gears and cars.
Acceptable?
It's like based on the Industrial Revolution.
Acceptable.
Anyone else? No?
We have a very simple take on steampunk, and this is why people like us and listen to us, and why we are considered, able to do things like this. Steampunk is,
Well, first off, you're all correct.
yes,
None of you are wrong, even though they were different. But there's also more to it than that.
there is more to it, but our very simple way is steampunk is basically whatever you want it to be. If you can justify why it's steampunk, then it's steampunk.
Especially with that anachronistic style or attitude taken to it.
The biggest element of it is anachronism. Bringing something.
Who doesn't know what that means?
It's a big word, it's okay if you don't know.
It's multisyllabic. I understand.
It's out of time.
I didn't know it was Russian.
Is what it means. So if you have, say for example, someone in some sort of period clothing with, be it on a vehicle or a weapon or a prop or whatnot, that is clearly not from that same era, that's anachronistic, and we can apply this to steampunk. But you also find it in the real world. Some paintings, like from Renaissance or from the front period, say you'll have some famous person holding a book, and that book wasn't written until after that person was dead. So, is that steampunk? Not necessarily. But it is an anachronism. It is an anachronism to help everyone understand what that is. So now that we've covered sort of what we like to push as steampunk, which is a very, very open door policy, and
Steampunk is an umbrella term. A lot falls under it.
And don't ever tell me we're not steampunk.
Yeah, that
Will probably kill you. And we're gonna begin our panel list by.
Oh wait, the biggest thing is steampunk is fun.
Yes.
Have fun with this.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're not having fun,
Stop
that's
standing
probably
in front
when
of the
I'll tell you that you're wrong.
And the whole point of media is to find steampunk in fun ways. So
Move, Professor.
let us begin.
So we begin with literature.
What?
No.
I know I was being silly.
And I want one. Rip it. Anyway, next. Is this steampunk?
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you for your resounding answers.
Okay, yes or no? I'm going to say
Too early
no.
for audience participation, I think.
Mostly because neither Mary Shelley or H.G. Wells or Jules Verne were steampunk authors. And if anyone tells you they are, they're wrong. Because if I go up to H.G. Wells and I go, "Are you a steampunk author?" he's going to look at me like I'm a retard because he has no idea what it means. They were written during a time where these things were mostly considered horror stories. I mean, you know, dear gods, they had little conception of the world around them. You know, there were still fanciful stories of, you know, dinosaurs still living in, you know, the depths of Africa and whatnot. We didn't have access to the level of technology and knowledge that we have today. So when someone writes about the War of the Worlds or a time machine or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, whatever it may be, these things were mostly sort of Victorian horror stories, okay? But on the flip side, it's a couple years later now, and they're not horror stories to us. You know, we've been to the moon, you know, War of the Worlds.
It's still terrifying though if it actually happens.
Right, don't get me wrong, yeah. But at the same time, to us, we can draw inspiration from these things. Now, if you read the books, yes, for example, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, they go into great depth on, say, you know, the Nautilus, etc., but it's not really a steampunk aesthetic. What we think of as some of these things, especially 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, is what? What do we think of? No, Disney? Yeah.
Disney was a
Unfortunately.
huge proponent for the current steampunk aesthetic.
So if you sit down and read the book, you're like, oh, that's cool, that was a big submarine and all this stuff. But the visual aesthetic that we will connect in our minds to being steampunk comes from other sources. That doesn't mean that you can't draw inspiration from these classics, which were written during a time that we relate to as being steampunk, period. And by the way, if I ever say Victorian, I don't in any way mean London between 1800 and 1900. I'm going to say Victorian because if I say Victorian, it puts into your mind an idea and a knowledge, but I'm referring to the entire world. Okay? Follow? Good.
The rest of the world had that time period too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now, is Scott Westerfield a steampunk author?
Yes.
Yes. Is H.G. Wells? No. Okay?
Leviathan.
Because obviously, he's clearly writing steampunk. Who's read either one of these? Good, good, good. 4 of you. For the rest of you, go out and buy them, read
I
them.
love how none of
They
us-
are amazing.
That's true.
So here's the deal with Scott Westerfield. These are young adult novels.
Children.
Doesn't draw away from them being good, but just FYI, when you go and read them, when I was about a quarter of the way through Leviathan, I was like, yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen. Doesn't take away from the fact that it's still a good story.
There's nothing wrong with enjoying young adult novels.
Exactly. And on top of that, the concept is so creative, so anachronistic, so just out there. Basically, you have 2 parts of each country sort of taken on. They're either Darwinists or they're
Plankers.
clankers. Thank you. Clankers. They all use machines. All their warships, all their battleships, all their stuff. They're machines.
Cyclops.
The Darwinists use genetically engineered animals, like big, giant whales that fly through the sky that are powered by helium balloons that they secrete helium to keep them afloat. And they all use other animals to make it. It's awesome, really. It's kind of what it comes down. But it's also very interesting because it makes you. It's post what we consider to be the Victorian period. It's set just before World War I. So a lot of people are like, well, that's not, you know, steam. Right. Yeah, it is. Still steampunk, anachronistic at a time, right? If you look at a lot of, you know, steampunk styles, they come from just that post-World War I era. So, right. Next, let me make sure I have everything. Who's read any of these? One. Now these are great novels. I found them a little difficult to follow, but what Stephen Hunt does here is he just basically kind of, a lot of steampunk novels, like, this is a world you kind of know. With Leviathans, like, you're familiar with this world. With some of the other books, you're familiar with this world. He's like, yeah, we're just gonna totally create this new world with these creatures and these things, and it's hinted at that it's brutally post-apocalyptic, like thousands of years in the future. But unless you are looking for that, that's even hard to tell.
In my opinion, read these ones first. These are incredible. I like Behemoth and Leviathan, but these are incredible.
One of the great things about these characters are the clockwork men, a whole race of sentient clockwork beings that they're almost static in their existence. Some of them are ancient creatures. Some of them are young, and then they can be frozen, just put away like a tool, or put in a different body, or combine two minds into one body. And it's just, again, it takes on that anachronistic steampunk feel that obviously we all love. Claps, applauses, nothing. Okay. Cherry Priest has been called, was this say, the High Priestess of Steampunk? I'll go with that. Cherry Priest has been writing books for quite a long time, and she was pretty much sucking at it really badly. Her books were...
She'll admit that herself.
Oh, yeah.
She says it.
Yeah.
I laugh the way you put it.
We saw her 2 weeks ago at TeslaCon. She's like, yeah, I was writing novels, and I really wasn't very good at it. I sold a couple hundred books, which was really just absolutely pathetic. You know, words straight out of her mouth. But she had one contract left for one book, and she came up with the idea for Bone Shaker. And I think it was an idea that she was going to... So, sorry, she had a series. She was on the last book in the series, and her editor found out about her idea for Bone Shaker. And they said, you know what, run with that. She's like, I have 3 months till the deadline that I have to do it. She's like, that's fine, you can write the book in 3 months. Which she did, obviously. Bone Shaker came out, and it's taken the steampunk world by storm, for lack of a better description. Now, of course, Dreadnought's the second one. The third one, which is called... I can't remember.
Afraid not.
No!
I'm sorry.
Shut up. That'll be out next year. But here's the deal with Bone Shaker. And Dreadnought. It's set in a world that is different from the other books. It's set in a what-if world. Yeah, and not so much the Darwinist and clankers as in Leviathan, because that's, I'm going to say, a little more science fiction because of the things that exist. They're very out of anachronistic and the big giant flying whale. That takes a little bit of stretch of the imagination. But with these books, the Civil War never ended. It just kept going. And with the run of the Civil War came, with any war, the advancement in technologies and things along those lines to push the world darker, sort of more post-apocalyptic. And this war's been going on for like 20